November 24th, the day before Thanksgiving. Rain fell steadily over Portland International Airport as travelers hurried through the terminal, eager to reach home before the holiday. Among them was a quiet businessman. Nothing about him seemed unusual. He wore a neatly tailored black business suit, a thin black tie, and carried nothing more than a black leather briefcase. Like everyone else around him, he appeared to be just another passenger beginning an ordinary journey. He approached the Northwest Orient Airlines ticket counter and purchased a one-way ticket to Seattle. The fare was just $20, paid entirely in cash. It was a simple transaction, one that attracted no attention whatsoever. The boarding pass carried a single name, Dan Cooper. No one questioned it. No one suspected it would soon become one of the most infamous names in American criminal history. With ticket in hand, he calmly walked toward his departure gate. Outside, Northwest Orient Flight 305 waited on the rain-soaked apron. Ground crews loaded baggage, refueled the aircraft, and prepared for another routine flight between Portland and Seattle. Passengers boarded one by one, joining what they believed would be a short trip lasting less than an hour. As the final preparations were completed, moments later, its engines roared to life. The aircraft accelerated across the wet pavement, lifting smoothly into the dark November sky. For everyone on board, it was just another routine flight. None of them knew that history had already begun. Chunk 2, Chapters 2 and 3. The Flight and the Note Flight. 305 climbed into the cloudy afternoon sky. The short journey from Portland to Seattle was expected to take less than an hour. For everyone on board, it was just another routine flight. Passengers settled into their seats. Some unfolded newspapers. Others quietly talked among themselves. Among the passengers sat the man who had boarded under the name Dan Cooper. He occupied seat 18C, beside the window. Minutes passed. The aircraft continued north through the overcast sky. Nothing seemed unusual. Then, the businessman quietly reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. His movements were slow, deliberate, and almost effortless. From the pocket, he removed a small folded piece of white paper. Nothing was written on the outside. Nothing about it attracted attention. A flight attendant approached his row, expecting nothing more than another passenger request. Perhaps a refill, perhaps a question. Instead, the man calmly handed her the folded note. She accepted it with a polite smile. Without even looking at it, she casually slipped the note into her pocket. The businessman watched her for a brief moment. Then he leaned forward, speaking quietly enough that no one else nearby could hear. "Miss, you'd better read that note." The flight attendant paused. Then, she unfolded the note. "I have a bomb." The words were simple, matter-of-fact, almost casual. To prove he wasn't bluffing, he slowly opened his black leather briefcase, just enough for her to look inside. She caught only a brief glimpse. Several red cylindrical objects, a network of colored wires, and what appeared to be a battery. The briefcase was never opened fully. There was no dramatic display, only enough to convince her that the threat was real. The businessman then handed her another folded sheet of paper. This one contained his demands. He wanted $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting when the aircraft landed in Seattle. Every instruction was clear. Every demand was precise. Without drawing attention, the flight attendant accepted the paper and calmly walked toward the cockpit. The captain, the first officer, and the flight engineer listened carefully as the flight attendant explained the situation. The mood inside the cockpit shifted instantly. This was no longer a routine flight. Within minutes, air traffic controllers, Northwest Orient Airlines, and the FBI were all being notified. What had begun as a short flight between Portland and Seattle had suddenly become a national crisis. Inside the aircraft, the passengers remained completely unaware. Outside, a massive operation was already beginning, one that would soon involve law enforcement, aviation officials, and the highest levels of the United States government. Chunk 4, Chapter 4, The Negotiation. Inside the cockpit, the crew quickly relayed Cooper's demands: $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting in Seattle. There was a little time to debate. The safety of the passengers came first. As Flight 305 continued circling above Seattle, authorities raced against the clock. The FBI, local police, airport officials, and Northwest Orient Airlines all worked together to assemble the ransom. At a nearby bank, employees gathered $200,000, mostly in $20 bills. Before the money ever left the vault, investigators carefully photographed every single serial number. It was a painstaking process, but they hoped those numbers might one day lead them back to the hijacker. Meanwhile, inside the aircraft, life appeared almost completely normal. Passengers continued reading newspapers. They finished their drinks. Quiet conversations carried on throughout the cabin. Nearly 2 hours after leaving Portland, Flight 305 was finally cleared to land at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. As the aircraft rolled to a stop, airport workers carefully approached with everything Cooper had demanded: the money, the parachutes, and the fuel truck. The exchange took place quietly, exactly as Cooper had instructed. Only then did he allow the passengers to leave. One by one, they stepped down the stairs onto the rain-soaked tarmac, carrying their luggage, believing they had simply survived an unusual delay. Most never realized just how close they had come to danger. With the passengers safely off the aircraft, only the flight crew remained. The cabin that had once been filled with conversation now felt strangely empty. The silence was unsettling. Cooper issued one final set of instructions. The aircraft would take off again. This time, it would fly south, into the darkness. As the crew prepared the Boeing 727 for departure, rain continued to fall across the airport. The engines slowly came to life. Outside, everything looked routine. Inside, everyone knew the night was far from over. Flight 305 prepared to leave Seattle once again. No one on board could have imagined that within the next hour, D.B. Cooper would vanish forever.